There's no denying that some of us have literally grown up watching horror icons Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Freddy Krueger, and all of them while crapping our pants, of course. They are categorically the most prominent names who are held in the highest regard to date, and believe us when we tell you that you still would not want to cross paths with them. But we also think it is time for us to say to you to look beyond the greatest fiends of horror cinema and shift your focus on these notorious maniacs instead. Well, in today's video, we will be exploring 10 of the most underrated, terrifying B-movie villains that should not be treated lightly under any circumstance. The list already has us super psyched, and without further ado, we will be taking a plunge right into the video. But before we get into our explanation, we do have one very small request. If you enjoy our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now, let's begin. Matthew Cordell from Manic Cop. William Lustig's cult horror film introduced us to the murderous Manic Cop, or, in other words, Officer Matthew "Matt" Cordell. Portrayed by the late Robert Z'Dar, the Manic Cop is horribly scarred with a decomposing, disfigured face because of his near-death experience. Mind you, the disfigurement gets worse, and by this, we are stressing on Cordell becoming way more rotten and decayed as we move on to the next two installments that followed the 1988 action slasher flick. To be honest, not much is known about Cordell's background except for the fact that he was a well-known, respected cop who had little regard for the rules of the force. Cordell was more of a shoot first, ask questions later kind of cop who was deliberately framed by his superiors along with the corrupt mayor Jerry Killiam and sent to a correctional facility. Call it fate, but Cordell was ambushed and killed by the very 3 inmates that he had put in prison in the shower room. The medical examiner, who performed an autopsy on Cordell, found the latter exhibiting exceedingly faint signs of life and therefore had released Cordell under the care of his then-girlfriend and fellow officer Sally Noland, convinced that Cordell was completely brain dead. It is only fair to say that Cordell was so furious at the fact that he was stabbed in the back by the very police force who was once his ally that he eventually began his killing spree in New York. Cordell as the Manic Cop is seen clad in a typical police uniform, which includes a button-down shirt, a necktie, a cop cap, a pair of white gloves, and, let's not disregard, the leather jacket. His primary weapon happens to be the police baton, which actually conceals a huge menacing blade inside. And it goes without saying that he is often seen resorting to his signature weapon to get his job done. May we add that Cordell is absolutely ruthless regarding his kills. While his main purpose is to get his revenge on the men responsible for his current predicament, he's also pretty determined about ruining the image of the police force. What can we say? The vengeful Cordell has his fair share of reason after all. Fender Trolo from Cyborg. Let us begin by stating that Fender Trolo is a man with no sentiments. He is completely insane, vicious, and sadistic in nature, one who has no regard for life. It is not only his particular hatred for human existence that makes him kill. The bestial Tremolo kills simply because he loves to do that in the first place. It is only fair to call Tremolo someone who has an insatiable lust for blood and is wildly inclined toward violence. Now, for those of you wondering what causes Tremolo to be so extreme, and if any motivation as such drives him, the answer happens to be in a bold no. Every action of his is only because he either wishes to kill or make others suffer. That is his only agenda. And to top things off, he does not even possess the slightest bit of guilt. From not having even a straw of empathy for people, Tremolo exists with the sole purpose of inducing and producing pain, suffering, chaos, and death to others. As seen in Albert Pune's Cyborg, the fact that a plague crippled the entire civilization and it was almost close to an apocalypse stage brought nothing but sheer joy to Tremolo. This was the world that Tremolo dreamt of, a world where only he would continue to live, killing every trace of human sign he would encounter in his path. What makes Fender Tremolo even more terrifying are his creepy blue eyes that almost look white, and the fact that he is unstoppable in a fight. He literally possesses deadly fists and violent combat kills, and add to these superhuman strength and resistance too. So for instance, surviving a very deep chest cut and getting up after falling from a huge height and then continuing to fight. These aren't big deals for Tremolo. You might want to address him as a cyborg because he clearly truly behaves and acts like one, and while there have been rumors about it, believe us when we tell you, he is human, despite everything that tells us he is not. Pumpkinhead from Pumpkinhead. Well, who doesn't remember this gigantic, spindly, demonic monster that back in its day literally scared the living daylights out of us? Stan Winston's directorial debut describes the titular antagonist as the demon Vengeance, who upon being summoned will wipe out its victims, giving each one of them the nastiest of deaths ever. Mind you, anyone who dares to interfere with Pumpkinhead's mission will be marked, and trust us when we say you do not want to be marked by this unforgiving monster here. What we are looking at happens to be a creature with pale skin, an enormous head with several buds, and bright white eyes with creepy-looking reptilian pupils. The creature does not possess a nose. It is entirely hairless, with a very large mouth filled with a row of pointy human teeth. The dreadful-looking creature also has these bulging things that grow from its elbows along with additional joints on its legs. Pumpkinhead features extremely long arms with four-fingered claws, which serve as its primary weapon. Also, let's not disregard its long tail that has a fin-like tip. Pumpkinhead basically symbolizes the conjurer's hate and desire for vengeance, which means that the creature simply loves the pain and torture that it inflicts on the victims. One will find Pumpkinhead intentionally letting his target escape him, but that is only because the creature considers the whole thing as a game and enjoys drawing out his targets while making them last longer in the game. Pumpkinhead, as a vengeful demon, believes in making its victims undergo brutal deaths. Of course, this makes the creature exceedingly sadistic in nature, as it literally goes out of its way to make the kills look horrible. One of the primary things that make Pumpkinhead even more terrifying is that no matter what you do, you can't have the monster distracted till it's done with its duty. Dr. Decker from Nightbreed. Philip K. Decker, also known as Dr. Decker, happens to be the chief antagonist of Clive Barker's dark fantasy horror flick, Nightbreed, which is based on his 1988 horror novella titled Cabal. Here, we will be strictly focusing on Decker's character from the movie, which portrays him as someone who is very witty, charismatic, quiet, educated, and sophisticated. He is quite a prestigious man, someone who is believed by everybody, but this is also his most treacherous characteristic trait, because people believe in him in spite of his lies. Now, let's delve deeper into his murderous and sadistic self. Decker actually relishes painfully killing people, especially children. Decker is pure evil, and he has admitted to enjoying the murderous activities that he has been engaged in. Decker does not go for the straight kill. Instead, he is shown to be someone who is seen enjoying the slow, painful deaths that he is usually seen inflicting on his victims, using sharp weapons and leaving his prey completely unrecognizable at the end of the day. The psychopathic Decker is often seen relying on his man of prestige personality so as to trick people and then get away with their murders. He is seen taking pleasure in taking away lives and does not feel the slightest bit of guilt or attachment when he is committing the heinous acts. As someone seen resorting to taking advantage of his target's weak-minded state to mold their minds as per his will, he surely cannot be treated lightly. It is only fitting to address Decker as someone who is quite xenophobic, and his genocidal nature has made him go to unfathomable extents. Cropsy from The Burning. Tony Maylam's slasher movie not only acquainted us with the summer camp caretaker Cropsy, but also showed us why one should not prank a summer camp's caretaker for that matter. After Camp Blackfoot's alcoholic and abusive caretaker, Cropsy ended up severely burning himself when a group of campers played a horrible prank on him. He retained extreme deformities from all the failed skin grafts. Upon getting released from the hospital, Cropsy had his reasons to arm himself with a pair of garden shears and seek revenge against campers in particular. Cropsy's satirical choice certainly deserves a mention here. We are explicitly talking about his iconic coat, hat, and sunglasses that he is seen resorting to hide his deformities. His method of killing conclusively happens to be epic. Using garden shears, Cropsy has effortlessly and brutally slit throats, slashed chests, foreheads, as well as throats, stabbed and cut off fingers of his victims. And if these aren't enough, Cropsy has also used a modified blowtorch to operate it as a flamethrower. The deaths have been ghastly, but so have Cropsy's wounds for that matter. The Miner from My Bloody Valentine franchise. Say hello to the Miner, one who happens to be the main antagonist of George Mihalka's 1981 Canadian slasher movie My Bloody Valentine. Mind you, there have been many who have taken the moniker of the Miner, stalking and killing the residents of the Canadian mining town, Valentine Bluffs. Now, as we go back to the origins of the first miner, it was Harry Walden who ended up resorting to cannibalism after an explosion caused by methane gas led the mining tunnel that he was inside to cave in, thereby trapping him along with the other miners. After Harry was rescued 1 year later, he killed the 2 supervisors who were responsible for the explosion, using a pickaxe, and placed their very hearts inside boxes of Valentine's Day chocolates. This brings us to our next miner, Axel Palmer, who had seen Harry murder his father when he was young, and as a result, Axel had a mental breakdown. His past trauma eventually led him to go on a killing spree dressed up like Harry Walden to keep the town of Valentine Bluffs from never celebrating Valentine's Day ever again. The chief weapon used by the miners happened to be a pickaxe. Just think of all the gruesome deaths that can be delivered with a pickaxe, and it is there. In fact, the 2009 remake of the 1981 movie has a reporter claiming that Harry Walden had killed 22 men and women, and the list also contains children. The skills of the miners working in their favor include levels of brute strength, stealth, and let us not disregard high levels of pain tolerance. We are looking at a legacy serial killer here, who certainly cannot be treated lightly. The Leprechaun from Leprechaun. Meet the titular antagonist of Mark Jones's comedy horror flick, one who has a penchant for killing anyone who ever eyes his gold. The Leprechaun himself happens to be a sophisticated serial killer who is exceedingly aggressive, bloodthirsty, sadistic, and insane in terms of his nature. He epitomizes mischief, death, and destruction, and he will kill anyone, we repeat, anyone who gets in his way, or even thinks of stealing his gold. The Leprechaun's sadistic nature is usually on display with him resorting to his gruesome poetry skills while butchering his victims. The Leprechaun is also shown to be quite insinuative and provocative, as he is seen making use of his mind control abilities to influence women for sexual motives. However, having said that, the Leprechaun's primary goal is to acquire gold, and that makes him dangerously greedy, as well as materialistic. It is fair to say that this is what ignites his murderous shenanigans, which have taken the lives of uncountable human beings.
How you doing, Horus? Let's let her go. Come take.
Horus Pinker from Shocker. Who does not remember Horus Pinker from Wes Craven's supernatural slasher film Shocker? Initially introduced as a psychotic television repairman who is basically a serial killer, having killed over 30 people, Horus is eventually caught and sentenced to die in the electric chair. Horus ends up epitomizing the famous phrase, "What dies does not stay dead," and he is seen returning from the dead with new, sinister demonic powers at his disposal. The powers include not only his ability to manipulate electricity, but also have the gift of entering people's dreams. Imagine someone who can literally travel into television and also interact with the characters of the various television programs. It is scary, right? Well, that's Horus Pinker for you. The Djinn from Wishmaster. Robert Kurtzman's fantasy horror film, which was executively produced by horror master Wes Craven, revolved around an ancient wish-granting evil genie who, upon getting released from a jewel, sought to grant wishes, all in exchange for human souls. This should not come as a surprise to you at all when we tell you that since the jinns are demonic in nature, the wishes will be warped into curses for the jinn's entertainment. The jinn featured in the movie is portrayed as a prideful, cruel, vicious, scheming creature who will literally stop at nothing to unleash his race so that all of these malefic creatures can rule over the world together. The Jinn has a rather twisted sense of humor, and it is shown essentially when he cracks a joke seconds after brutally butchering someone. A hideous-looking monster is his proper form. The Jinn happens to be a clever shapeshifter and manipulator whose primary goal is to free his fellow Jinns so that they can take over Earth and exterminate humanity. Wondering if that's the worst part? The Jinn cannot be killed. No wonder this character here is considered one of the most powerful villains in the horror genre, and his vast array of seemingly boundless abilities make him a pretty intimidating adversary for anyone who even thinks of going against him. Blade from Puppet Master. When it comes to the fans of the Puppet Master franchise, Blade is easily the most recognized one. Blade happens to be a living puppet who was created by the original Puppet Master, Andre Talon, in Berlin during World War II. It is only fair to address Blade as a spy puppet with weapons for hands and categorically appears as the leader of all other puppets featured. Please do not make the mistake of going by his looks, especially his gothic-styled appearance, his gaunt, pale face, long white hair, and the dark trench coat that he comes with. A wide-brimmed hat might make one take him lightly, but we highly suggest that you don't do it. Blade's signature weapons are a knife blade and hook, and he can be exceedingly menacing if he wants to. Marvelous verdict. Well, that is all for today, and with this we have finally come to the end of our video here. So which of the ones mentioned have you seen, and did your favorite B-movie villain make it to our list? We would love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and we hope you have got your fill of horror for today. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then please do leave a thumbs up. Also, stay tuned with us as we promise to come back with more exciting content. Till then, goodbye, and thanks for watching. Have a nice one.